Welcome to Eldercare Illuminated, Torchlight's caregiving podcast. Eldercare Illuminated addresses the ins and outs and ups and downs of caring for your loved ones. Join us for interesting conversations with eldercare specialists, geriatric care managers, attorneys, and ordinary people with extraordinary caregiving experiences.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Eldercare Illuminated, brought to you by Torchlight. I'm your host, Lenore Tracy. Today we are lucky to be speaking with a professional caregiver who has taken time from her busy schedule to give us an understanding of what it's like to do this job for a living. To protect the privacy of her clients and her work, we're not using people's real names during our discussion. Kim has graciously agreed to share some of the secrets of her success and how family caregivers over the years have made her job easier or harder to do. The Torchlight platform includes lots of information for family caregivers about hiring an aide through an agency or privately. In today's podcast, let's get some insights into the aide's point of view. Just a quick reminder that if you're not currently a Torchlight user, as offered in your employer's benefit plan, but you would like access to Torchlight, ask your employer to call us. Contact information is on our website, www.torchlight.care. And now, let's get started.
Kim, welcome to Eldercare Illuminated, our podcast here at Torchlight. We are so lucky to have you to talk to us about what it's like to be a home health aide and how we as caregivers can help you do your job. I have to say, you do the most important work there is. Hard work, kind work, difficult work, intimate work, and people who have a professional aide to help them take care of their loved one are really, really lucky. How did you decide to become a home health aide?
Well, good morning. I think becoming in the caregiving atmosphere decided me. Looking back, I've always had a career in food service in the elder community, but I've always been caring, whether it's for my family or children, or most recently my mother passed away from cancer 15 years ago. I've always had someone I was caring for. And so I think this career chose me.
That's interesting, and I bet a lot of other people would say that as well. Do you have special training?
Yes, we have to take I think it's a 75-hour course in the classroom, and then you go on to clinical work, and you train there.
Do you train in people's homes, or do you train, what's the environment that you train in?
Either or. It's difficult to find training in people's homes just because of the staffing. So most of the time you train in long-term care. Okay.
So most of our listeners are working caregivers, taking care of somebody. Either the person lives in their home with them, or they live nearby, or for some people they live across the country. And we depend on a person like you to take care of our loved one. What makes a good setup in a home where you're caring for an elderly person?
Well, aside from the actual physical setup, where, if the bed's in the right place, we have all the equipment we need, all of the supplies we need. Obviously, that's a big thing. Other than that, I believe the setup is purely about communication, comfort with each other, being able to relate to each other and have everyone on the same page regarding what is the best way to go forward with our loved one to make their last days as good as possible.
And are you frequently in a situation where a person is at the end of life or near the end of life?
Yes, that seems to be where I mostly am with clients. I kind of help them on that journey.
And people need a lot of help at that point. Without revealing any personal information, what's the worst situation that you've ever been in, so that our listeners know, don't do that?
My worst situation was I was working with an elderly gentleman and his 3 daughters, and we had a team of caregivers at that point. And not everyone was on the same page. The daughters all wanted different things for their dad, and they all wanted the caregivers to be able to meet their requirements. And of course, when you set it up in that way, it's impossible to meet everyone's requirements, and it puts the caregiver in a difficult position because we are trying to satisfy too many chiefs, and when we really should be focusing on the loved one. So that is very difficult when that happens.
Were you able to resolve that in that situation? What?
Yes. We had a family and caregiver meeting, and we discussed, the issues as we saw them, because their father lived in a home by himself, and so in the end it did work out. But I would say, to families out there, make sure your siblings, if you have them, or the extended family, you're all on the same page before you bring someone into the home, just to make it easier all the way around for everyone.
That sounds like a difficult situation. Anything you would say about communicating with the caregivers, the family caregivers? Are there things that make it more helpful, or things that make it less helpful? I know in my situation, I try to be direct with people, but that's just who I am. But sometimes it's awkward. We've had professional caregivers in the home. My mom lives with us, who I think didn't see it my way, and I'm lucky that my siblings are on the same page with me, and we have certain things that we think are important for my mom. And there have been caregivers who didn't agree with us, and that was awkward. Awkward for us, but probably awkward for the caregiver also.
Yes, I'm sure it was awkward for the caregiver. However, I have to say that you as the family need to be comfortable with who is caring for your parent. That is absolute key. If you don't have the comfort and the trust in the person that you have with your parent or loved one, then you definitely need to go another route. I myself, I'm very direct as well, and I appreciate when someone is direct with me. And I can be direct back, and then we come to a conclusion based on that. Unfortunately, not everyone feels that way, and it's my way or the highway. And
that is true. In your day-to-day work, I'm sure you've had a whole range of issues that the person you were taking care of, medical issues that you've had to deal with. Have you had to work with and take care of cranky, difficult old people? I'm sure there are hardly any of them out there. If you have, what strategies did you use for getting around that crankiness?
I don't take it personally, and I don't dwell on it. Yes, there are cranky individuals out there, but I have found most of that is because they've lost control. They're not in control of, what they have been for many, many years, and it's frustration that comes out as anger. And it may be directed towards me, but it's not about me, and I try to keep that in the forefront of my mind. It's not always, easy, and there are days that I cry, but I can think of one instance. I was working for an elderly woman, and she just said, "Get out, go home, leave me alone. I don't want you here." So and she was wheelchair bound at that point. I took my chair and I set it directly behind her so she couldn't see me. And for an hour, I read my book quietly while she thought she was alone. And she was probably happy and felt maybe she had taken back some control over her own life. That issue of control, especially, you do a lot. You are intimate with your patients in that you may be cleaning their bodies in the most intimate ways. How do you help preserve their dignity and control when you may be
giving care, taking care, incontinence care, that sort of thing. Do you have something special that you do that helps them be cared for?
I just talk them through it. I always let the patient know exactly what I'm going to do before I do it. You know, whether I think they can hear me, whether I think they can understand me or not, I always, tell them exactly what's happening. I say it matter-of-factly, and I don't, and I just try to get the care done as quickly and as efficiently as possible so we can move on to more pleasant things. Mm-hmm. And I find that, by and large, that works.
Have you ever been hit by a patient, or somebody really doesn't want you in their business?
Oh, yes. I've been scratched and hit and called many colorful names. And usually if it escalates to that point, which I try never to get it to escalate to that point, I just stop. Mm-hmm. As long as the patient is safe where they are, I will stop and I will cover them up and wait until they calm down, and we resume later. No one's going to, be permanently scarred by laying naked for 20 minutes while they calm down.
Yeah. With the cover, though. You put the cover
yes, with the cover,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah. So I think that's just amazing, and I think your comment that you don't take it personally is really important. And I think that's important for family caregivers, too, to not take it personally. I mean, I won't recount for public consumption the kinds of things my mom has said on occasion. But if I took those things personally, my feelings would be hurt a lot of the time. So when you gain that understanding of the frustration of not having control over your own life, and you don't make it about you, that's probably good for anybody who's taking care of an elderly person or a younger person who's incapacitated in some way. I know that you've said you've taken care of a lot of people who are approaching end of life, and you probably, I didn't ask you this, how long the average time you spent with any one client is, which I would love to know, but I'm assuming that you build this relationship over time. It's an intimate and close relationship, and then they pass away. How do you then move on to the next client when you don't have a lot of time in between? How is that for you?
It's difficult. I have never been able to shut myself off and keep my distance, so to speak. And so I grieve right along with the family. My average time is between 6 months to a year with a client.
So that is a long time. That's enough time to build up a relationship with the family and the person you're caring for.
Yes, absolutely. And I grieve. I allow myself time to grieve. I cry. I go to the services. I take a few days off. And when I'm ready, I call the business I work for and say, I'm ready for a new client. You have to allow yourself to grieve. And people grieve in different ways, but that's what works for me.
Mm-hmm. That sounds tough, and yet you sign right up again.
I do, yes.
So clearly, it has its rewards. What about the nonverbal patient? And I'm circling back to ways that you communicate, this time with the person who you're taking care of. Some patients, especially patients with a dementia, no longer have the ability to communicate with words, but they have needs, wants, opinions that I assume they share with you in their own ways. How does that all work?
That you have to get to know your patient with. You have to read body signals, facial expressions, and that takes time. You can't just walk in one day and be able to look at a person's face and know what they need. But if you watch their faces and their body language, they will tell you what they need without voicing it.
Give me an example.
The lady I'm caring for now, quite often lately, she's been nonverbal, and I look at her face quite often, and when she is not having a good day or not feeling well right there, she has a deep crease between her eyebrows. When she is feeling happy or relaxed, it just shows in her face. Her face is relaxed and her hands are relaxed, and you just need to look out for those signs, because those are very visible signs of how they're feeling.
That takes a lot of sensitivity and good observation skills. And I think one of the things I take away from that is that you are carefully watching and listening, and you're not rushing. You're not rushing. One of the things I have observed, some aides are very quick and businesslike, which has an advantage in the tasks of caregiving, getting them over with quickly, but that doesn't necessarily give you the opportunity to really observe and understand what a nonverbal patient is experiencing. They would need to be able to somehow communicate. I'm cold, or I'm too hot, too many covers, or I'm not happy in this position. It's important to be as observant as you have suggested. Kim, when you are in the position taking care of someone, whether you're caring for them in a facility or in their own home, are you a mandated reporter? That is, if you see an abusive situation or you see something that shouldn't be, either neglect or physical abuse, are you mandated to report in the state where you work?
Yes, I am.
Have you ever had to do that?
Not as a caregiver. I have when I worked in a nursing home in the food service department. I did have to do that, but never working in someone's home.
Well, that's kind of good to know.
Very.
It's very good to know. And it's also good to know, I think it's a wonderful thing that personal caregivers are mandated reporters. That's just another protection that we have for the elderly. I want to thank you for talking with me. And again, thank you for the kind of work that you do. I understand from recent studies that have been done that we are going to need something like 5 million more caregivers in the coming years, professional caregivers, because of the aging of the population and the scattering of families who may have siblings that are in the Midwest on the two coasts, and the parents may be somewhere else entirely. And everybody's going to need the kind of help that you can provide and the kind of example that you set. I've learned a lot from the professional caregivers in my life. I've developed some skills, some caregiving skills that I never would have. And also I've learned ways to communicate with my mom. And I've learned when to back off. That's just saying the times when my mom has been upset and I'm in there being, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And sometimes, like you have said, what I can do is leave the room and give that lady some peace. Mm-hmm. All good things to know. Again, thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you.
It's been fun talking.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. Just a quick reminder that if you want more information about today's topic and you have a Torchlight Elder account, go ahead and log in and explore the eGuides tab of your navigation bar. Torchlight has a number of guides and tools for finding help and managing this intimate relationship. Professional caregivers work with the elderly in the community and in facilities. Whether you need short-term help to get respite for you or another family caregiver in a home setting, or your loved one is cared for by aides in a facility, such as a nursing home or assisted living, there's a lot to learn from them, and many things you can do to make the relationship work for you, your loved one, and the aide. If you don't have access to Torchlight Elder as part of your employer's benefit plan, but you'd like to, ask your employer to call us. They can find our contact information on our website, www.torchlight.care. And you take care for now. We'll see you on the next episode of Torchlight's Eldercare Illuminated podcast.
Thanks for listening to Eldercare Illuminated, a Torchlight caregiving podcast. Find other episodes of Eldercare Illuminated on iTunes, Spreaker, and Podcast Go. If you're interested in bringing Torchlight Elder or any of Torchlight's other caregiving products to your workplace, please contact info@torchlight.care. That's info@torchlight.care.